And here we go, live, Ask Tom, or Ask Tom Live, if I get it in the right direction. And that's what we do here, is you ask me questions about your home improvements, whatever they may be. I've been answering them for, well, all my life, it seems like, but at least since I was maybe 8. But as far as that goes on the radio for the last, going on 35 years soon, and starting my 35th year, at Sports Radio 610. So we have home show radio that you can listen to all over the world through our streaming podcast, whatever, at homeshowradio.com. Or right here, we're doing live every Thursday at 4 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. And that's what we're doing today. But I'm on Saturdays from 9 to 12, Sundays from 8 to 11, unless the Texans are playing, which is a football team here in Texas, for those of you that don't follow football. And the ones that do don't really follow the Texans either. But as far as that goes, we have the Texans there, and I'll go from 7 to 9 on days they play at noon, which is most Sundays during the season. And let's not forget, I see him staring at me. I look down here at the screen below my camera, and it's Danny Milliken, who does Garden Pros, Garden Line with the Garden Pro, not Garden Line. Listen to me, Charlie. You're going to hit me for that. Home show Garden Pros. We don't even need to detail that one. It's another show on another station. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, it is. Yes. We're the friendly show.
As far as it goes, yes, we're the ones that aren't angry.
And no
angry
rules.
Beaver Garden Show.
Right. No rules.
No rules. Just ask your questions to Danny. He's a wonderful man, and he knows his stuff. And he has a lot of good people that Charlie can probably help me with. That help him out with all the local nurseries in the Houston area. And let me tell you, Houston is a big town, and we've got some great nurseries out there.
Yeah, there are 6 garden centers in the Houston metropolitan area that come on and help us with the garden stuff on that show. And it's every Saturday, 7 to 9. And, of course, it has its own website as well. Let me go back to that a second here. The Garden Pros show at homeshowgardenpros.com, and he's on every Saturday. But what we do here is we answer your questions, and you're welcome to participate. We really are here live today, which is ironic because we could be playing a recording of this later and we'd be still saying it, but we really are. We were off last week, and Tom and I both had things that took us away, but we're back this week live, and we'd love to hear from you and get your questions. And to do that, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Just put them in the comment section down there underneath the window you're watching, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, and put it on there. Now, I will tell you that the stream's my personal page. We won't see those questions. You got to go to the Home Show Radio or the Garden Pros one for us to see the questions if you want to send them to us. And my wife complained to me the other day. She says, I was typing you questions and you weren't responding. She says, it was almost like having you home. So, right. But we like to start everything off every week with what's news. It's home improvement news from around the world and up your block. And this week we're going to talk about how they're yanking the construction supply chain. I saw this in the Wall Street Journal earlier this week, Tom, that builders are in such short supply of materials that they're having to go look for alternative materials to meet their demand for new housing. I'm sure you've seen this going on in the industry. He says potentially this is going to lead to higher costs and added complications, and but they say that's preferable to putting projects on hold. That's what builders are saying. So Wall Street Journal said that the shortages stem from supply chain disruptions, that everything from the ports are congested, to factory labor shortages, storms in Texas and Louisiana. They have to blame us. And of course, then semiconductor shortages are causing shortages in appliances, especially if you have somebody selling you a variable speed AC, good luck. You're going to be waiting a while to get it because supplies are in such short supply that some distributors are putting contractors on a list. They're taking their best contractors and saying, we're selling only to these guys. Other people have to buy something else. One builder says that they've been in the industry, Tom, for 90 years and never seen anything like this before. He says, I've learned more about refineries and resin plants than I ever cared to know about.
Yes.
He says more than 90%, according to the Wall Street Journal now, of builders reported shortages of appliances, framing lumber, and OSB. Another 90% say they can't find plywood, and 87% say they can't find windows and doors. Plus, plastic roofing membranes are now getting hard to come by because of shortages of the raw material, as well as a lack of truck capacity to move the things around. So there was a Wells Fargo housing analyst in this article that says it used to be whack-a-mole. and you'd whack one thing over here and the other one would pop up. She says, right now, there's like 6 of them coming up and you can only whack 2 of them at a time. So I guess this means, Tom, is that if you're planning a house, you better be real flexible with the timeline to get it built. Do you think that's about right?
Yeah, there's several comments I can make. One, the resins, they come from India. They had such a bad, out of control COVID issue that it shut all the plants down. Resins go into paints and glues. That's why they say plywood and OSB. It's not that we don't have the wood. The trees are growing. They don't care. It's because we don't have the glue to put them together. Now, you also made a comment about it's best to keep going with alternative materials. I personally don't think so, because I think what we're doing is we are creating an inferior product. And in the long run, it's going to bite some people 10, 15, 20 years down the road when the homes start to fail in certain areas that they wouldn't have had the failure with the tried and true products and building techniques we're using. So I would be very careful. I'd almost, if you can, like to see you buy an older home, fix it up right now, then go into the new housing market and buy something new, because they're, I'm not going to say cutting corners, but they're just using, whatever they can get. And whether it's as good or not, it doesn't matter as long as it fits the bill for now. Mm-hmm. So be careful with that. So there's a lot of different things. And Charlie, before I start all that, because my mind was going, you asked me, what was that question you asked me to fill in at the end? Do you remember what you just asked me when I got started? Anyway, those are my comments, and I'm sure there'll be more coming. But there's so much going on.
We were talking about the materials and how, would you put projects off and what kind of alternatives, and you've answered that question. And that
okay, so I got around in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I was like,
that's exactly what I'm seeing, because I am so frustrated as a builder. Well, I was a builder, but I'm seeing it in the industry. And the labor force, the trucking and stuff too. The labor force has changed. We don't have a labor force anymore. I don't know, and I'm not going to get into all the political stuff, but our labor force is non-existent. People are not going back to work. Right. They are not going back to drive trucks. I run a training school. I can train hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. I've got millions of dollars in training money. Nobody wants to do that work anymore. They just don't want to do it. It has nothing to do with the quality of the pay or anything else. It's just not part of what they want to do, and they're not going back to it. So that's the other thing. People say, let's make it all in the United States. If you can't fill the plants with people to work there, no matter what you pay them, people are not motivated by lots of money anymore. They're motivated by their lifestyle, not doing much and being taken care of. It's the American way. And so it will be decades before we still go down, before we go back up. And I don't know if I'll still be alive because of my age, but it eventually will have to catch up with itself. But right now, it's going to be a long-term problem with the workforce of America.
Well, I hope you're alive for that, Tom. I mean, it's like,
Well, I can only live so long. I mean, 30 years. I'll be 93, 96. I don't really care at 96.
About the truck, but your point about the truck drivers, Tom, is that I read where the problem with truck drivers is not that the job is bad, but like during the height of COVID, when they had cut down on all of the long-term trucking, long distance trucking, a lot of those truckers got hired by Amazon and FedEx and other shipping people, local shipping people. So now instead of running long runs, they're working it closer to home and getting home for dinner. And so
lifestyle, again, people are looking for an easier lifestyle. But think about this. Right now that sounds great. But when Amazon has nothing to deliver, what good does it do you?
Well,
it will happen. They don't make stuff; they just deliver stuff.
We make a point of not being political on this show, and so
well, no, they don't make
stuff. I feel like there's a political pothole ahead. I'm going to steer the car around it and get to the questions, because
maybe politics drives the country.
Maybe so, but you know what? It's not gas in our tank here. We're all about home improvements, and we're going to stick to that topic here today. So if you have a question and you'd like to share it, it's easy. Just go ahead and put it in the comment section. It'll pop up, and we'll do our best to answer your question here live. In the meantime, I have a couple questions here, Tom, gleaned from the Ask Tom section at homeshowradio.com, which, by the way, where is that? I've got that right here. If you go to homeshowradio.com, we won't be able to get these now, but if you want to put one on for us to answer later, go click on Ask Tom right there, and it takes you down to this page where you can either send us a video or do it live. And that brings you to this form where you can send us pictures, and that always helps us. So, first question comes from Bob in Coppell, Texas, which, by the way, I hope I got that pronounced right. I worked hard to make sure I got it right. Anyway, he says, what is your opinion on painting bricks on my house, Tom? He's in North Texas, obviously. So I'm concerned about ongoing maintenance. Is there a special paint that is used or prep? And I've read that staining bricks is better because it allows the bricks to breathe. But I cannot find anyone who does brick staining. What say you?
Brick staining is used for matching one type of brick to another when you're doing repair work. So you don't just stain all the brick on your house. So I don't know where they came up with that. You'd have to be very careful because a brick already has a color and a texture, and you start putting stain on there, you don't know what it's going to look like. So be careful. It'll take it, it'll absorb into it, it'll change the color, it'll eventually wear off, and you'll have to keep doing it. And you can't restain it again and get the same look because it's going to be a different base. Every time you stain something, the base changes, the outcome changes too. Painting brick has been around a long time. It's a great way to save brick. What happens to brick is it deteriorates with moisture, and it starts to get ugly, it starts to crack, it starts to spall, which means that pieces come off of it. So by painting it and keeping the water out of it, it actually prolongs brick. And on old buildings that they want to maintain, they'll paint the brick to keep the water off the brick because the brick will eventually just wear away from the weather. But I will tell you this on the other side, and Charlie, I think I mentioned this to you many, many decades ago. That's how old we are. That if you paint brick, it's painted for good. So don't unpaint brick. You can't unpaint it unless literally you get a sandblasting equipment out. And what they usually use is pecan shells to sandblast the paint off old bricks so you don't destroy the brick, and it becomes a very arduous process. So it's used only in very expensive renovation of very old buildings as far as that goes. And now the type of paint, real quickly, you use a masonry primer on there. Every Sherwin-Williams, Pittsburgh paint store, Benjamin Moore store, they'll have it to match their paint. And then you just use a high quality exterior house paint. And painting brick is very easy, and it holds paint a long time. You don't have a lot of maintenance with it.
Yeah, in fact, what Tom's referring to is years ago, when I was a brand new home buyer and asking the same questions that we're getting all the time here, we thought about painting our house. And Tom says that's a perfect way to make a maintenance-free surface require maintenance. And so I elected not to, and I'm glad we did. In fact, when we moved into our building here, where we're housed here on the west side of Houston, we thought about painting our logo on the front of the building instead of a sign. And one night I was on the way home and I thought, I'll bet that's going to make it hard to sell that building one day. And so,
not if you sell it to Mosier Media.
There you go. And somebody who does a home improvement show. It could work out well. All right. Next question for us comes from Carrie in Bel Air. He says, I live in Houston and have purchased a second home in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's a double-wide trailer with a screened-in add-on porch. And she says the siding on the add-on is something similar to T111, which I guess is like a plywood kind of product. Isn't that right? Or is it
T111 is a textured plywood, yes.
Okay, right. He says it needs to be replaced. Is hardy board as good an option for that climate, Tom, as it is down here?
Oh, yeah. It's good everywhere. The climate, it's great for the Gulf Coast area and the Houston area because we have such a volatile weather pattern. It's great for Oregon and Washington State. Their weather pattern up there is different, but very volatile too. But then if you have an area that really isn't volatile at all, like Kansas or something, who knows? I'm just picking that out of my hat. It's good there too. So it's good everywhere. Hardy is a great replacement for T111 if your T111 really needs to be replaced. Also, if it's not real bad, you can put a Tyvek or a Hardy wrap over the top of the T111 and put your Hardy right to it because T111 is nothing but a plywood, and so it makes a great sheathing also. And to finish this answer, Hardy makes a T111 look-alike, so you might even get one to match where you only have to do one or two sides of the home, and when it's all painted, it looks fine.
That'd be cool. I didn't know they made a T111 look-alike.
They do.
Or it's not probably not a look-alike, but it's similar.
With T111, you have on centers. You have 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. So you have a big area, then you got this little groove, then you got a big area, and so as long as it's the same groove pattern, and they don't make them all, but if they have the same groove pattern, it looks just like it when it's painted.
You want Tom's groove pattern.
The groove, yes.
All right.
You should
All
have
right.
some music for there.
Gregory, I know I couldn't get something up quick enough here. All right. Gregory in Perrin, Texas says, how do you separate okay, let me start over. How do
Yes.
separate electric providers get power to your house when there's only one power line coming to the house? I've always wondered this myself. How do they separate the power coming from one guy in the neighborhood when it's all on the same power line? So, like you have 3 different power providers. How do they know what house is getting the power if it's all coming down? It's actually a pretty logical question.
It's a logical question with an illogical answer. All the power is the same. That's why when people say, well, I'm only going to buy wind power, I'm only going to buy solar power, the power made with that wind generator doesn't necessarily go to your house. It goes into a big pot that CenterPoint in the Houston area will distribute, and wherever else you'll have a distribution center, they just distribute the electricity. It's just being made. And what they do is they buy batches of power. It's like a commodity. They buy so much that they can sell, and when they read your meter, they just tell the company what you used, and you paid to that company, which pays a certain amount to CenterPoint for the delivery charges, and they've bought a certain amount that they can sell from a wind supplier, a solar supplier, or a little bit of both. It's weird, and there's no way for me to say anything except it's all the same power. It's all on the same line. You don't know what power goes to your house, and the neighbor doesn't know what power goes to its house. It's just generating power, and they have this weird way of generating profit by selling sections of power and selling it to the power makers, or paying the power makers and then taking a cut off the top.
So that's when you get the delivery charge. When you go to powertochoose.com, and you're looking at the different pricing options, because that's what we recommend if you're going to shop your power. You go to powertochoose.org or .com. It resolves in the same place, and you can put in your zip code, and it'll tell you the pricing for that power. And when you go down break it down and look in the detail sheet, there's always a delivery fee from CenterPoint. That's them paying to run the pipes that actually the wires that come to your house.
Now that's a delivery fee. That's a fixed fee that goes to the delivery people. Now let's say you signed a contract for 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour, or 6 cents a kilowatt hour plus delivery charges. Delivery charges are done. CenterPoint's paid. That 10.6 cents, you say, or 5 cents, whatever you signed up for, they're probably paying 6 cents and pocketing, 4.5 cents. So they're making money, so they're buying it as cheap as they can. They're putting the least amount of profit on there that they can to be competitive, and then they sell it to you. So they take a top off of that, and the rest goes to whoever that's actually paying for the windmills and paying all that. And then they have government subsidies that come in and hold that too. So it's a very complicated system, but that's where the profit goes to the people you're buying it from. They just take a cut off of that cents per kilowatt hour that you sign up for.
So Gregory, it actually is a really good question, because you wonder how can they decide what power goes to what house. So that's awesome. All right, yeah.
Yes.
And I'll take Tom, not to belabor the point about electric, but normally this is a good time of year to sign up, but I've noticed, because we had some questions about this earlier, and I went and looked, rates are actually not dropped off like they normally do this time of year. What do you think is driving that?
It's too early right now.
Okay.
Driving that's a lot of different things, including politics, which we're not allowed to get into. This is going to be a little bit of a rough year, okay? We have elections coming up. Things will happen. But as far as that goes, I would tell people to wait till January or February, where people are starting to go into a new fiscal year, and they want to beef up their group of people in their whole, I don't know what you call it, business, all their customers. And then you'll see it drop more, but it's going to drop later this year. It's too early right now. We're still just moved into October.
I forgot to mention, we have a brand new home show video that we're going to play here at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to show what the difference between one kind of fiber cement versus another, one that we like and one that isn't. And you'll find out why. It's a shattering story.
Okay, fine.
Coming up in minutes. All right. Donna in Meyerland writes to us. She says, I have a 1951 brick veneer ranch-style home that's showing no actual leaks, but might be beginning to get pinholes based on random weird attic noises, which isn't really the sign of a pinhole leak, I don't think. But, I mean, can you talk about when an epoxy relining might be a better choice than repiping? Because she's obviously seeing those options, Tom. And what factors would make you consider one versus the other?
Well, right now we're talking about a 1951 home, so I want to be very as specific as I can be. 1950s made great galvanized pipes, so the time you have to have a repipe or a renewal of your pipes, which probably would be a better way to go, is when you lose your water pressure, you get a ton of rust in your water, your toilets are turning red, and you're having other issues, because those aren't the pipes that actually caused a lot of pinhole leaks. Not to say you can't have one, but it's pretty rare. The galvanized pipes that were made overseas and shipped in the late 70s and through the 80s, those are the ones that got the holes in them because the galvanized process was different. But that old Pittsburgh pipe was great pipe. It just is going to come to a point where it has to be cleaned out. So I think that's a better option for you. And as far as noises go, that has nothing to do with your pipes, or I should say pinhole leaks. Maybe somebody's banging on a pipe, but it has nothing to do with pinhole leaks.
I would think that the problem with the older pipe, Tom, is less about holes, it creating holes as much as sediment building up inside the pipe. Where
it's not sediment, it's actually the rust starts to, like, have you ever seen metal rust? It expands. And in there, it's just expanding to where you can cut some of that old pipe and you cannot see light through it, but the holes are small enough to allow water through, but your water pressure starts to drop like crazy. So yes, it is a sediment of sort, but it's actually a rust of the pipe, which isn't that much, but it's enough to close that pipe up.
So let's go back to her question, and that is which do you recommend under what circumstances, like TDT?
Well, in this case, I would probably go ahead and renew. So yes, you're right about that.
If she has the older pipe, refresh those pipes.
Oh, if they look at her video on the website, Charlie, they will see the inside of those pipes look shiny, brand new again. Then they line it with an epoxy. So the pipe has a lot of wall thickness to it. It'll be fine. But at the same time, I tell people to call TDT, because when you get Vic or Gary or one of the people out to your home, they're going to tell you these are your options. We found some really bad spots we might want to replace a little bit. The rest of your pipe is a great candidate. So let's go ahead and do that. And then maybe a combination if the house is as old as 1951. So I'd like that one-on-one consultation. You don't have to buy a thing. Now, a lot of people say, why can't the other plumbers do the same thing? They don't have access to that particular system. So they can only have one access, so they're going to sell you one solution, which is a solution, but it's repiping. You won't get any other alternatives.
Not all PEX, and before we move on to this next question here, I just want to cover one more thing about PEX, that not all PEX is the same. I know that they're using the Uponor PEX, and that there's a big difference between that and other PEX. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's fine. When I was actively building homes at the end of my career, and this was 10 years ago, Uponor came out, and it was a type of PEX. Remember, there was like 50 different PEX manufacturers, but it was the best PEX on the market. So I chose the best alternative for my clients because we got away from copper, and it was a great one. It's a commercial grade PEX, so it depends what you buy. You can buy plastic anything, but there's different grades of plastics and vinyls and chemical compositions of these things. But what I'm amazed at is 10 years later, I've been out of the active building business in the skill training business, which I've changed a little bit as I get older, but it's still Uponor is leading the way. And I like that because they've been a leader now since PEX got really popular. So it's nice that they're still on top of the pyramid.
It's a more durable. It handles the expansion and contraction when it gets cold.
It has a memory, is how they tell you. They came to my job and they put a piece in a freezer about a foot long and froze water in it. Then they took sledgehammers and beat it up, and the pipe had gotten real big, and they beat it and beat it and beat it. And then they let it thaw out, let it sit overnight, and it went right back to its original shape. It has a memory. And that's what convinced me, was that demonstration, and that's why I started using it. But real quick, you still have to drain it when you get the freezes, because you have copper fittings that go into the wall to your toilets, to your sinks on exterior walls. You still have all the connectors, which are metal connectors. They can still freeze and break. So it is not a freeze-proof whole system, but the pipe itself probably will not split somewhere in the wall. You still have the joints though.
All right, we have come to our final question, our final Jeopardy.
And then the
right
video.
Here. Right. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. We got the video coming up. Hang on for that. Doug in Pearland wants to know, Tom, I've heard you speak before about can I take the air gap hose off my dishwasher? It's really unsightly. And are they necessary? My dishwasher is about 8 years old. Do the new ones still have that hose? Help me, Tom. What is this air gap hose he's talking about? Because I'm not as familiar with the back of a dishwasher. I barely understand the front of a dishwasher. So
It's okay. Quite frankly, you don't need to understand this at all. Take it off, get rid of it. I don't know who came up with this. For a while there, they were requiring it. I know they're not anymore. I've never had one in my house or ever built a house. Even when they required it, we would disconnect it when the people moved in. But it's this little air gap that goes on your kitchen sink, and if you get some kind of backup or anything, it overflows all over the sink, all over your countertops. It allows air to go in and drain it back down. It's just made no sense at all. People have been using dishwashers for years without them, and we're using them today without them. So I would tell you to get rid of it. Put a plug on the sink where the hole is, where that little gizmo is, and get rid of that terrible mess, because it always soaps up and has all kinds of crud come out of it. And so why it's there, I have not a clue, but there's a lot of stuff out there that they make people put on homes, like the backflow preventers for your hoses. I understand the concept, but they can be a pain, and the arc fault arresters and all this stuff. I know there's a reason, but the reasons are so slim and we've lived without them that sometimes it gets a little ridiculous.
but in this case, you're saying put a plug in it.
Well, the plug goes in. Yeah, no, get rid of it. But the plug goes in the hole because the sink has this thing coming out like a little cap.
We don't have
And
one
when you
of those.
take it out, you have a hole in your sink, so put
Yeah.
a plug on the sinkhole.
We apparently that we must have had somebody.
You don't
your
have
same
one on your
ilk.
house either.
Yeah, we don't have that. All right. Hey, so let's land the airplane. Let me tell you, if you'd like
Yes.
to get questions on the show, let me tell them this, and you can tell them about the show first. We have this thing at homeshowradio.com on our website. This blue Ask Tom button right there on the home. Oh, Home Show Pros. Sorry, I forgot. These are the people we recommend, the people Tom trusts. If you don't know who, but you know what, you click on Find a Pro. It'll show you the categories of the people we have. They're in the Houston area. But if you listen to the video at the top of that Ask a Pro page, it explains how we choose them, and it'll help you choose them wherever you are in the world. And we're happy to help you with that. Now, what I was going to say is if you click on that blue Ask Tom button, I think I'll run the right animation here. There you go. It'll take you to this page where you can decide whether you can send us a question or send us a video. If you're going to send us a question, put all your information in, and you can attach a picture. And that helps us do a better job answering your questions. We answer them every day. We just finished taping a whole bunch of them for the next week here before we came on with you here. And we post one every day because Tom likes to help, and we like to help him help you. So you'll find them on our Facebook page, the Home Show Radio YouTube channel, of course, homeshowradio.com. And Tom, you'll find on the radio this weekend.
Yes, I will be on the radio this weekend from 9 to noon on Saturday and 7 till 9 on Sunday. I got to get the times right, so I look up to think. And I will not look up when I'm doing the show. I promise to look right at you while I'm doing my radio show. Danny, of course, 7 to 9 on Saturday morning because he gets the crowd going for me. And, of course, he does a great job when it comes to your gardening questions.
All right. Before we go, one last thing. We have we like to, whenever there's a new home show video, we like to premiere it here first. You sat through this whole thing, so here's your reward. You get to see it first. Hope you.
There's something in the chemical composition of the fiber cement that allows it to do this.
There are two things you can do to prevent this from happening to your home.
I've never seen a properly installed Hardy product even come close to doing that.
Improper installation, an inferior product, a recipe for distress.
We came out to this subdivision and the builders had used a competitor of Hardy, which is fiber cement. but it doesn't have the same proprietary ingredients that Hardy does.
Not the first time a home builder tried to cut costs. What did it cost this homeowner?
It's been 7 years since they constructed these houses, and the siding's been failing for the last 5.
James Hardy siding properly installed is warranted for 30 years. One edge.
Hardy's just a little bit thicker than the competitor's product, which just gives it a little bit more strength.
This could have been avoided if the homeowner followed the clues.
They actually take the time to emboss in each board the manufacturer's name, James Hardy.
If you're looking to save a buck and are willing to sacrifice quality, don't call a Home Show Pro.
We have customers say, well, can you quote it with this different siding and this different siding? And we say no, because we don't have the confidence in that siding product that we do in James Hardy.
Properly installed siding in the hands of qualified installers. That's why I tell you to call Advanced Home Exteriors, one of our Home Show Hardy pros. For HomeShowRadio.com, I'm Tom Tynan.
Well, there you go. You can find that and a lot more videos over there at HomeShowRadio.com if you're looking for help. And Tom, I will see you on the radio Sunday morning.
Be there.
All right.
Or be square.
Have a great week. We'll be back
Yes.
next week, same time, 4 o'clock Central Time, here on Facebook Live.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who knows. Home Show Radio.